No.
Excuse me, do you know what you're doing?
No, I don't, because this guy's bugging me.
Would you have it any other way?
Huh?
Would you have it any other way?
No. I like to be seen and not heard.
All right, I think it's time to start our regular scheduled meeting. I'll call us to order. Summer, if you'll read the roll or call the roll, we'll get started.
Commissioner Patterson?
Here.
Commissioner Norwood?
Here.
Commissioner Baker is not present. Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Commissioner Stallings?
Here.
Commissioner Orr?
Here.
And Mayor Mason.
Here.
Quorum.
Our invocation this evening will be by Reverend Allison Burchett, and our flag salute will be by Commissioner Stallings to follow. So if you'll stand and remain standing, I would appreciate that.
If it is your practice, I invite you to pray with me. Holy One, in whom we live and breathe and have our being, we give you thanks for today. Thank you for waking us up and bringing us here tonight to do the work of this city. We ask that you would give us good ears for listening, good hearts and minds for understanding, and good words when you'd have us speak. As we look towards the work of your city, I ask that you would forgive us all for what we've done and for what we've left undone. Forgive us for the times that we did not see you and our neighbors, and for the times when we did and turned away. We ask for your blessings on our leaders and public servants. We pray for our mayor and our city councilors. We pray for our city managers, for our police, for our first responders, and for the hundreds of other public servants who work tirelessly each day to serve our city. We pray for their wisdom and their safety. As we work to serve your city, remind us all of what unites us. Tonight especially, we think of those neighbors who are cold, those without a place to stay, those without enough to eat, those without fuel for heat. Help us to think of them and to make this a city that cares for the least of these. We pray all of this in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy. Amen.
Amen.
Please turn and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Okay. Item 3.1, consider approval of minutes of the regular commission meeting of December the 17th, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second it.
Have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. By the way, welcome here. First meeting in 2025.
Yeah.
Almost forgot to say that. So, yeah. Item 4.1, present pet available for adoption at the city's Animal Welfare Department. Yeah, who do we have tonight?
Tonight is Dee Dee.
Dee Dee?
Yes.
All right. All right.
So Dee Dee is about 5 to 6 months old. She is a pit bull mix. She is very well behaved for her age. She is extremely dog friendly. Does really well in the vehicle. She already knows sit and is highly treat motivated, so training her would be super easy. She does really well on the leash, and she's just super friendly, outgoing, very playful, very entertaining. All right, Jay, you want to show them how you sit? Come here. Come here. Can you sit? Good girl. very focused on truth.
So am I.
She is in Pen 12, and she is available for adoption. Her adoption is free, and you receive a voucher to get her fully vetted and microchipped, all for free, through the Enid SPCA. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Item 4.2, I have a presentation I'd like to read, a proclamation for the recognition of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day that's coming up. I think, Scott, am I giving that to you? I think you're the head of the board, aren't you? Scott, I think this event's going to be on the 20th, right?
Yes, sir. It's a multiple kind of event day. It starts at 8 o'clock. There's a prayer breakfast from 8 to 10 at the Stride Bank Center. Everyone's welcome to come out and join. Our celebration will begin at 11:30 with a luncheon. We'll do a celebration. We'll award a lot of children their awards for their art, poetry, and essay contests, and then we'll finish it off with a commemorative march around the square at 1:30.
Okay.
And the public's invited. It's all at the Stride Bank Center on Monday, January the 20th.
Perfect. All right, thank you. On this proclamation, it says, whereas the City of Enid established the Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Commission in 1989, and whereas the City of Enid recognizes Dr. King's work and sacrifices in the civil rights movement to fulfill the promise of our Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and whereas his work was cut short by his assassination, leaving all of us to carry on his work, to live up to our founding documents and our nation's pledge, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And whereas this year's theme for the celebration is Get Along, okay? And whereas the celebration is on January the 20th, 2025 at 11:30, and the march is at 1:30 p.m. at the Stride Bank Center. And whereas the King Commission and the City of Enid shall present the Diversity Award during the celebration to those individuals who have made significant contributions in race relations, justice, and human rights. And whereas the work continues, the dream still inspires, the field remains ready for harvest. Now, therefore, I, David M. Mason, on this important occasion, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor, and on behalf of the City of Enid, do hereby declare January the 7th, 2025 as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So, give you that, shake your hand. You want to say anything else, or you good?
Just come out to the events. We'd love to see as many people as we can, and come enjoy.
This is normally a pretty big event. The turnout's usually pretty good. So.
It is. Yes, it is.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry. Okay. Item 4.3, recognize Aaron Crawford and Mandy O'Day for earning the certificate or the Certified Public Finance Officers or the CPFO designations.
Aaron and Mandy, would you come on up, please? I want to specifically, and we are recognizing tonight, Aaron Crawford, our CFO, and Mandy O'Day, who is one of our accountants in the office upstairs. And they have just recently earned the very prestigious Certified Public Finance Officer certification. And so they may want to talk about that in a minute, but I thought I would talk about it for a minute. It is the premier certification of your competency at doing public finance in state and local government. And I would add that there's 11 CPFOs in the state of Oklahoma, and 2 of them are right here for the City of Enid.
Wow.
And so I think that's fantastic. And I would, because we are competitive here too, we have one more than Oklahoma City now, right?
Correct.
So thank you both very much. I know I watched them, they studied. This is normally about a 2-year program of study. They completed in about 18 months or so. 7 exams, difficult exams. You don't just, stay up one night till 2 a.m. and then take the exam. So I'm you're both outstanding members of the team, and I appreciate it. And you may want to talk about it. It was quite an accomplishment. We're here to recognize you.
Honestly, I probably would not have done the certification program if Erin hadn't pushed me. I'm going to blame her for it, but she also held me accountable. And because of that, I feel like I have gained so much more knowledge on how to do my job and how to do others' jobs, that I can have a greater understanding of my city and how I can transfer that to help make things better. So Erin, thank you. Gerald, thank you. Ms. Erin, would you like to say something now?
No, I would like to thank my family too for their support. It took a lot of hours of studying and time away from other things to be able to do this. And again, I wouldn't have done it without Mandy. I've had the desire to do it for a while, but having someone to hold me accountable and just to put it on the calendar and do it, it's been great, not only for our department, but I think the city's already benefit and will continue to benefit as we're able to implement some of the things that we've learned. So.
Tell us about the 7 areas you specifically learned about.
Well, we started out with budgeting. We thought that we were pretty familiar with that one. It'd be a pretty easy one to start with. And then there's a test on procurement, one on risk assessment, financial reporting and accounting,
Yes, that was
treasury and investment management,
Debt management.
debt management and compensation and benefits. So the 7 areas that are the tests are on.
Well, I have a few things to present to you in recognition of this. I do want to say it is an incredible accomplishment, so I want to give you a couple of coins. You are most valuable players in the city of Enid, so I'll give you both a coin, and I also wanted to give you a coffee cup, and you can drink coffee or tea or water or whatever, because I know it's rigorous, and sometimes we're here a long time. It's not easy keeping track of all the money and reconciling all the accounts, but I really appreciate it. The city could not flourish without you doing what you're doing. And so you're going to get a chance to be on stage next time talking about our audit, which is good news. And then perhaps we'll talk about finances and budgets shortly thereafter. So thank you very much. You're outstanding members, MVPs in the city of Enid.
Absolutely. Okay. Item 4.4, recognition of City of Enid employees for Christmas in the Park.
Yeah, Karen, would you come on up here with all the folks that you have sitting out there, city employees?
I have quite a crew.
You do, you do. I wanted to say a few words. We just had a wonderful holiday season. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and you're having a wonderful New Year's. But part of what we do at the City of Enid is we make everything run, from the library to the parks to the streets to the sewer plant to the traffic lights to all the electricity and all of that stuff. But we still take time and extra effort to try to provide quality of life for people that live here. And we did that. Michael, come on up here too. Come on up here. And we did that for the citizens that live here. And one of the notable things, what we're talking about here, I hope you got to see Christmas in the Park. The lights may still be there because they take some time to take down, right, Corey? Corey, come on up here. Take some time to put up and take some time to take down. But we do that because this is a great place to live, and we want it to be a great place to live. And part of why it's a great place to live is because, we celebrate holiday and Christmas seasons. But again, nothing happens at the City of Enid without the people. And these are the people, the primary people that actually went out there on a Saturday for 3 hours or something in the cold and did Christmas in the Park stuff. So Karen is our event coordinator, and so she did a lot of the effort, but everybody up here And particularly the people up here participated on coming out that Saturday. I think it was December 14th. And so I appreciate it very much. You want to talk about everybody's efforts?
So basically all the departments that he described, we had 4 of them. We had library, engineering, tech services, and the parks department that were all involved this year. I love seeing departments like engineering come out. They all work together, hang out together. It gives them a chance to team build too. Tech services, they're rock stars. They always come out too. And then of course the parks department, I always tell them I have the easy part and I couldn't do anything without them. Literally, like, I can plan, but if I don't have them, I can't do it. So they're a great team to work with, and I really appreciate it. And the library, they do their own little Christmas thing, but they also came and helped us, so appreciate that.
Well, I have an MVP coin for you guys too. And so, because you're all most valuable players, thank you so much for working for the city of Enid and not only doing what you do, like at the library, but also the extra stuff you did. And I love your smile. Keep on smiling. Thank you very much, Courtney.
Thanks.
Thank you. And I think I have a few more. I think we'll make it to the end. All right. Boy, holiday season's busy for you.
It is.
So thank you again, and let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you. Okay, item 4.5, introduction of our new Community Development Director. Scott?
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm very happy. The last 4 months, I've been looking, cast a net several times, trying to find the right candidate. We've interviewed several. It took a while. We were patient. And I want to start by saying thank you to our engineering team, our code department. We've been managing all of our development incoming, and I think very successfully. But I'm so happy now that we've found the right person. And so I would love to introduce Jacqueline Porter to you. She's a very experienced municipal planner, and she's coming to us with a master's degree from the University of Oklahoma. Boomer? Yeah. Okay. And so I don't know, Jackie, if you have anything you'd like to say, but welcome to the team, and so glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to get started here in this position. I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma, Amber, Oklahoma, if anybody knows where that's at. It's close to Tuttle, a little bit further south of here. So Oklahoma's in my blood, so I'm glad to be here. So that's all I got.
Good. Welcome, Jack. All right, item 4.6, discussion of the Oklahoma Water Resources Board funding of municipal water line projects. And Commissioner, I think you were going to take this one and kind of tell us, I know we've had a lot of funding here lately from the Water Board, and you were going to kind of explain that for us, how that works.
Well, we get a lot of questions about where do we come up with all this money? And the Call Lake project was an example of, we borrowed millions and millions and millions of dollars as we went through that project. And the Water Board is a state organization that was put together, I think it goes back into the 50s and 60s, and they sell bonds. They sell municipal bonds that are guaranteed by whatever the wealth of the state is, and they're sold at very, very competitive rates, and that money then is used to loan to big communities. Oklahoma City, I think, has the most money borrowed right now, but we're pretty close in second place, I believe. But all the towns, big towns and little towns, are all able to borrow money for infrastructure projects, water towers, water lines. And as if it's not for that, and they had to go into the regular market to borrow the money, they would be paying a lot more, because the rates are very competitive at the Water Board. And it's a delight to sit there. We meet once a month, and all the people come in usually and make a little bit of a presentation, kind of like we see here, about what they need, but our staff has already vetted them. We know what they need, and it's kind of a ceremonial thing, but it's still nice to see them when they show up. It's usually the city manager and the mayor that shows up and makes the presentation, but it's very rewarding to see them walk out of there with a big smile on their face, knowing that the people in that community are, in some point in time, are going to be better served. They're going to have better sewers. They're going to have better water to drink. So it's a great program. So.
Yeah, I would just follow up and say, hey, it is a fantastic program, and we have had the opportunity, Aaron and Morali and others, to be in front of OWRB quite a bit in the past, probably 8 to 9 years. We've borrowed, Aaron can tell us how many times for Caw Lake, 5 or 6 times, and we've recently done 2 waterline projects. Some of the items are on there tonight, and we would not be able to do and replace those water lines without the funding source from OWRB. It's probably one of the greatest state agencies that we have, and the funding model where they distribute the money out to the communities allows infrastructure that's very expensive to be replaced. And so we get a wonderful interest rate. This last time, Aaron could tell us what it is, but it's better than what you and I could get going to the bank. And then, Morali, we get the added bonus of forgiveness. So do you guys want to talk briefly, or do you want to talk about the waterline program briefly?
The recent loan forgiveness program is like almost like 25% up to $1 million. So city took benefited twice in a row, like last time when we did the Southern Heights and the Leona Mitchell Waterline project when we did. That's a bigger project. We able to do the whole subdivision, couple subdivisions in there, along with several water lines, miles of water line projects. And so the first program was $4 million, and the second program almost $3.5 million. So each program, like city received almost $1 million forgiveness. Along with the water collect project, we even get back in 2007, we did a sewer project. So sanitary sewer treatment plant improvement back that time. So Enid is benefiting like on most projects. So.
Yeah, I think we've done quite a bit. We're going to keep on doing stuff, including tonight. I would say one other thing, that program enables us to be responsive to our citizens. I can remember sitting in here when we had the ladies from Southern Heights in here, and some of you were on the commission, and they talked about the water problems over there. And we had to quickly solve that issue, and I think we did. In about 2.5 years or so, we went from what's the solution to the Leona Mitchell water line. A $1.8 million project was part of that first $4 million project. And then I would just say, one of the things we're focused on to get more done is we've got to raise more revenue, or we've got to get more help. And these programs are fantastic. We get to borrow the money at a good interest rate. If we borrow $4 million and we only have to pay back $3 million, that's a really good deal. We have some CPFOs now, but I probably don't even need their analysis to know that's a good deal. Let's do it. So that's on the agenda tonight. I still don't know how it all works, but I appreciate Commissioner Stallings. You were also a board member there, and I know they somehow take money and issue bonds and get money, and then they give it back. And I remember Joe Freeman, who's retired now from the board. I would always thank him after the meeting, but he would always remember, well, you do have to pay it back. So anyway, it's a great program, and we wanted to talk about it a little bit tonight before we get to the items in the consent agenda.
And Commissioner Stallings, you and I go back even farther when we signed the funding for the Caw Water Project. And Commissioner Norwood, you were on there also, and remember we were getting advice from that group, and they kept telling us, just wait, it's going to go down another click, it's going to go down another click. Now, you can be a hero or you can go to zero real quick if that interest rate changes. But they were spot on with that, and when they were, I think we locked in, and I'm sure there's multiple levels. Aaron doesn't like me ever giving numbers, but it works out into about 1.89%, under 2% by waiting that amount of time, which was just remarkable. That today would cost us a lot more than that, and that project would be over $600 million instead of $342 million. So our timing was impeccable, and thank you so much, and thanks for what the Water Resources Board does. We could not make this thing work without them, so thank you.
Well, it's a great state agency, and, you know, the governor's always been behind it, and the group that started it is, and most states do this at some level, but I think our system works really good.
All right, very good. Item 4.7, so this is the discussion of any items remaining from the study session agenda from earlier this evening. Now, I was telling the Kimley Horn group that we had allowed about 30 minutes for each group. We realized real quick that it was going to go a lot longer than that. So I'm going to ask them to come forward, and you guys can make your presentation for the new ballpark. I want you to know that we looked at it. It was about an hour and 15 minutes that we spent. So we will give you exactly the same amount of time, okay? So don't feel like you have to rush.
This down a little bit. Well, we do appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us on our presentation, and we'll try to respect your time too, so we won't just talk just to talk. So, but no, we really do appreciate the time. So, again, thank you for being here, and we'll jump right into what we're doing. So, Mayor, you had quoted a while back that we're one sports facility away from being the sports hub of Northwest Oklahoma. We agree, and really what we see is maybe you're one expansion potentially away out there at the soccer complex of having this mega complex of various sports types. So thought that was a good quote, and we're here to share our ideas of how we can make that happen. So on the agenda, this is just a quick outline, but we're going to go a little bit about who we are. No, it was in the RFP response, but a little bit about us, about our team, who's here, and then also who's back at the office. We'll talk about how we approach these projects, what we understand about your site, and then go through question and answers after that. So impact of this project. We see it as two parts. Obviously, it's a local quality of life project, so it does need to serve the citizens here of Enid. So how does that happen? It's available to use for all the residents of Enid. It also helps obviously with hotels and restaurants and just generating revenue from sales tax through that avenue. And then we see it really could be a catalyst for more mixed-use development, especially as you go north of the complex there up to 412. So we see that all really helping drive this home. And then also regionally, when you look at it, you're a 2-hour drive from Wichita to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So you are a Northwest hub potentially, but you're not far away from some of these other major population areas that will drive. I mean, we do it all the time, and we'll get into that. But a little bit about Kimley Horn as just an overview. We do these types of projects all over the country, but we also are local. We have our local team. We have local relationships, working with the city of Enid, with some of the other partners potentially on this. So we do have that knowledge, but we bring that national horsepower with all the projects across the country. We are the largest employer of landscape architects next to the National Park Service. I don't know if that impresses me as a landscape architect. I don't know if that impresses anybody else, but we do have a good resource of knowledge and case studies, as you will, across the country of doing very much of these types of projects. So here's a little bit about our team. The starting lineup back here will introduce themselves here in a second. But the rest of the team, we have hydrologists, we have engineers that do various different types of things. But we also brought in MA Plus as our architect partner on this. They are one of the premier architecture firms in the state doing this type of work. So a great partner that we're working on other projects with them. We have Envirotech as the local civil testing, all things boots on the ground type of thing here. So they're on our team. And then we also have Sports Facility Advisory Group. They're a national, do a lot of programming and marketing feasibility type studies. So if we really want to look at what works, if some of that stuff hasn't been done, we've used them in the past on projects. So a robust team of all sorts of great knowledge. So wanted to tell a little bit about us, just as a kind of a background of who we are and what we do. So my name's Darren Scott. I'll be the project manager, landscape architect by trade. Been in Oklahoma, grew up in Southwest Oklahoma, so I've been in Oklahoma my entire career. And really my passion is quality of life projects across the state. We've gone from Guyman to Southeast and everywhere in between. So really serving the state of Oklahoma through quality of life projects. And one of my pastimes is I have two girls. My youngest plays softball and have spent many of weekends at a softball facility. And yeah, you play some, but then you sit around a lot. So it gives me time to kind of look at complexes and see what works and what doesn't work. And we've been all across Oklahoma and then up into Kansas playing tournaments. So a little bit about me. So I'll let the rest of the team introduce themselves.
Good evening. My name is Jason Kanak. I sit up in Kansas City. We just had a big snowstorm up there. So took basically all day to get down here. Probably 10 miles north of the Oklahoma border, it cleared up and smooth sailing, so happy to be here today. So my role with Kimley Horn, I actually get to lead our nationwide sports task force. So I get to do sports basically from the pro level to the municipal level nationwide. So been doing that for about 25 years. As can be seen with the number of wrinkles in my forehead on the picture there. So happy to be here.
My name is Austin Burton. I'm civil engineer, so get to support our landscape architects as they're the creatives in the group. And on the civil side, we make sure that it works and functions. So I've last 10 years of my career been focused on vertical municipal projects, so police, fire, city halls, courthouses, and sports complexes. So had a chance to work on the CB Cameron Soccer Complex in Oklahoma City, as well as partner with MA Plus and doing quite a bit of K through 12 sports work around the state. So it's been a real pleasure. And my two kids are not quite old enough to play organized sports. So the photo you got here is in what little bit of free time I have left chasing my wife around doing half marathons around the state. So glad to be here tonight. Thanks for having us.
I'm Erica Jones. I'm also a civil engineer. I have been in the industry for a little over 15 years now. My main primary time is spent working with municipalities all throughout the state of Oklahoma. I've done a lot of work here in the city of Enid, working with Jason and Morali on projects right here, local. When I'm not designing roadways or intersection improvements, I'm chasing around 3 young kids, and we spend a lot of time at sports fields or at different courts, playing soccer, t-ball, basketball, you name it. So I'm really excited to be able to be a part of this team and also part of this project. So thanks for having me here today.
Good evening. My name is Heath Tate. Thank you for the water, sir, and I appreciate that. I am a principal architect and partner at MA Plus Architecture. I've been doing this for 25 years. I like to say quarter of a century. And as of last year, I also get to say half my life. So I really enjoy being able to say those things. You'll notice the picture of me doesn't quite match. I'm usually the one behind the camera. I actually don't like pictures taken of myself. This was a rare moment. But I played every sport growing up except hockey, and that's how I knew I had to be really good at school. But I want to take a little moment to talk a little bit about who MA Plus is. So we're one of the fastest growing architecture firms in the state. I became a partner in 2014. Since then, we've more than doubled. We've almost tripled in size. And as you can see, the same amount of time I've been there, we've done $140 million worth of athletic projects. I am the athletic specialist in our office, working on everything from K through 12 sites, even higher ed sites. You'll see several examples as we go through this. Going to give you just a quick overview of some of the athletic projects, and everybody's got locker rooms, everybody's got concession stands, but I wanted to let you know that from a building standpoint, that is an area of specialty for us. You'll also notice, hopefully, that you've got Enid High School gym. In 2017, we were selected as the architects to design the addition to the high school for the gym, and that's something I'm particularly proud of. That is a project that was a passion project for me, and hopefully it turned out well for everybody. I think so. I also want to call your attention to two other images here. Woodson Park was just recently finished last year in Oklahoma City. It was one of the 4 founding parks for Oklahoma City, and we were selected to be the lead design on that project with landscape and civil and all of that. One of the things I want to point out here is that park actually was designed for softball, as well as we call it rectangular field sports, because whether it's football, soccer, or other rectangular field sports, we wanted to be able to do a conversion. And these fields actually have removable fences that allow us to use those outfields to achieve that. So again, always looking for ways to maximize the use of the space. The other one I wanted to call your attention to is the Oklahoma City Public Schools project at Roosevelt Middle School. For the last 10 years, we've been working really closely with the Fields and Futures group, donating services to improve athletic fields across all of Oklahoma City Public Schools sites, primarily middle schools and high schools. But the reason we donated that is because of our passion for what sports and athletics can do for a community and for a society as a whole. There are skills that kids learn at athletic sites that they can't learn anywhere else, and it gets them away from the TV, the video games, the cell phones, and gets them interacting. And that's something that I personally am very passionate about from a event venue site. That's what I get out of it. Like you're seeing activity, you're seeing social building, and that's why I really am passionate about athletic sites. So.
All right, so now that you heard a little bit about our team, we'll go into how do we approach a project like this. So how do we bring it home? So we'll go through 3 key components of a project. So obviously the first thing is scheduling, coordination, make sure everybody's on the same page. And as you round the bases, communication is one of the critical pieces to any project. Then we move into design to bring that home. So on the schedule, we understood through the RFQ, sounded like it was about a 3-year from beginning to playing was a goal. So we mapped out a conceptual schedule here to show that. And really what we're showing is about 18 months or so of design and then 18 months of construction. Some of that initial design was site selection, community engagement, that kind of thing. That's very flexible. I mean, we can tighten it down to 12 months if we need to, but a lot of that was just making sure we were hitting all those components that needed to be there. So definitely doable in that 3-year time frame if that's still the current schedule. So communication, as I mentioned, probably the key component to any project. If anything breaks down, it's usually because of communication. So as a project manager and how we approach these things, the project manager works with the task leads internally to make sure everybody has what they need, and then we have our weekly meetings that then rolls out into the external side of things. And bi-weekly calls are very important to us on these kind of projects. Making sure that everybody's on the same page, but really bringing something that we need to discuss to each of those meetings, not meeting just to meet, but really to make sure we're hammering out what needs to be done at that certain period of time within the schedule. And then coordination. So when we think of this, you think of a manager of a baseball team, we think of this as a manager of your investment, and we're with you along the way to make sure whatever decisions we make are the right decisions for the project. And when we get started on these types of projects, we set goals. So we want to talk to everyone about what are the main goals of this project. So every time we make decisions, we're always looking back at those goals to say, is that what we want to do? Is that is that going to be valued in the project? And then the benefits to Enid is that return on investment. You're getting what you want, making sure that it fits what your initial goal was, and then we can cut out some of those unnecessary costs. of that. So coordination is key to any project. As we move into design, so obviously it's all about game day operations and experience from the spectator side of things and user, but also it's the city side of things. So how do you operate this? How do you maintain it? So we want to design this with efficiency and maintenance in mind, and talking with the maintenance staff is something we do regularly through this, and making sure that what they have is something that they can take care of. So we really have good conversations throughout the design. And then stepping into, there's a lot of sports complexes. I mean, they've been built forever, but a lot of the things we see now and the ones that we really like to work on are the ones that are really creating that sense of place, that placemaking element. So when we look at a project of this type, we want to look at these placemaking principles, the 4 that are listed there on the chart. So as we're designing, are we doing those things? Are we providing a safe place? Is it connected internally? Is it connected to the city? How's it activated at all times, outside of events even? And is it a social gathering place? So these are principles we look for. And then why is that important? Well, it makes it marketable to the residents through the quality of life. I know through Vance Air Force Base, that's a big thing with, providing that quality of life to bring people in, and then just residents of Enid. So that's one thing that's marketable locally, but then as you look outward to bring in those tourism dollars, it needs to be a memorable experience. When we go to places, and the venues that we go to, a lot of times isn't did we win or lose, how nice the field was. Sometimes it's, well, what could we do there? What could we do in the city? What could we do at the complex? So really adding all that together to create that memorable place. And then we listed some other enhancement options down there at the bottom that go a little bit outside of sports complexes that we've seen incorporated into these type of projects. So really excited to talk about some of those potentials. And then the thing we have here is when you think about going to a site or a complex, we think about how do you arrive, what's the experience there, and when you leave. So anybody you're like me, we're running 5 minutes late to the ball game. We don't know where to go. We don't know what field we're on, and we're just scrambling to get there. So how you arrive, is it clearly marked through wayfinding? Is there adequate parking, good entry, ticketing, that kind of thing? That's important. Then obviously you get into it, the experience is there to not only for the participants, but also the small kids that are needing a place to play and entertain. And then how do you leave? Is it a parking lot when you're trying to leave? Is it cars backed up? All of that stuff is important. So if any of those 3 things break down, then that leaves a bad experience memory for the user. So as our team thinks about this, these are all things that we're constantly evaluating. And here's a few examples of a little bit of what we're talking about. So CB Cameron, there's an entry feature, so you know you've arrived. There's the field markings, that's at Midwest City that we worked on. So clearly identifying the fields and where they're located, and then all the other amenities that go along with it. All of these things are important to provide a quality place.
And just adding to that, kind of building on what Darren was just talking about from an experience standpoint, one of the philosophies I like to take from an athletics development is look at who are going to be the end users. What do the coaches and refs, officials need? They're the managers for what's going on. What do they need to be successful? What do the parents and grandparents need in order to enjoy their experience there? A lot like what Darren was talking about. It's important to see through their eyes. And to understand kind of how they're experiencing the site, the buildings, everything that we're developing on the site. And then the third group is really what are the players, the athletes, the kids, the students, what do they need from that standpoint of to be successful, to be inspired to be there, to give their best effort, to understand what it means to partake in a team sport. Now, from a building standpoint, restrooms, locker rooms, those tend to be fairly standard, right? But there's ways, little nuances. Is it bright? Is it safe? Is it inviting? Is it welcoming? There are things that we do from a design standpoint that can really, build into that. Take this room, for example. This is a great room. Does it feel comfortable? Is it welcoming? Are the colors warm? Does it make you feel like you want to be here, or does it make you feel like you want to leave? A lot of what we do from a design standpoint, whether we're talking about fields, landscaping, or buildings and interior spaces, all build into that overall experiential moment that everybody who comes to the site is going to enjoy.
I want to talk just a second about flexible fields or multi-purpose fields. Heath mentioned earlier on a project that he did that they had some rectangular fields within some what I call diamond fields or baseball fields. The example on the left is a project in Mattoon, Illinois that we're actually in the process of doing construction right now. It's a quad of 4 baseball fields, full size. So these are 18U fields, 325 foot down the line, 400 foot to center, so full size, right? That affords spaces and shapes in there where we can also put in a full-size soccer field inbound of that, or lacrosse field or football field. So we can actually use that space for baseball and soccer. The other piece and part there is kind of hard to see, but we also have the potential to put some chain link backstops at the foul poles in the corners, where we can basically have 2 Little League or 12U fields, baseball, come in from the corners, right? So we can turn in 4 full-size fields into 8 Little League fields, so 12U Little League fields. So just bakes in a little bit of flexibility into this. And we made sure we put the soccer in there basically because it's right beside your current soccer complex, and that gives you the ability to expand that and bring in bigger tournaments potentially. The image to the right there is Midwest City. This is actually a project that Darren and Andrea worked on that also had a multi-purpose or flexible style field to it, where these are 300-foot fields. That's like a 14U baseball field or a regular men's slow pitch softball type of field. So that's the style of baseball, softball, and then they have basically rectangular fields for lacrosse and other rectangular sports in there diagonally. Just the flexibility of all of that. Shifting gears a second to field types, surface types. Kind of my specialty is what those are, how those are built, what they offer to the athlete and to the city. So we'll talk just a second between or the comparison with natural and synthetic turf. If we decide to do some flexible or multi-purpose fields, for example, those fields are going to have a lot of hours of play on them. Synthetic turf can handle that. Natural turf can't handle that, right? Because natural turf, you're going to be limited on the hours of play you can have per week and per year. So kind of a stat that I use, or a rule of thumb that I use quite a bit, is 1 synthetic turf field can replace up to 4 natural turf fields. And if you light that synthetic turf field, it can replace up to 5. And again, that's just down to hours of play per week, per year. Some other things we can talk through and things that we'll go through during the design process is basically innovative project or products with synthetic turf, where the synthetic turf industry is going, where it's at now. How do you battle the heat? How do you get the right traction with these different sports in case you're doing more than one sport, from football to soccer to baseball? All that matters, right? So we'll talk about all of that. We'll also talk about cost, both initial cost and operational maintenance costs. Obviously, synthetic turf's a lot higher priced up front, and natural turfs could be more cost efficient, but it's a flip-flop on the maintenance game and operations, right? Because we're going to spend a lot more money with irrigation and labor and mowing and fertilization, those types of things.
You've heard from Jason and Darren and Heath about the design principles and priorities. Wanted to spend a little bit of time looking at your site with you. Eric and I and the team have spent quite a bit of time wanting to share what we've observed as challenges as well as opportunities. So in the engineering world, we deal with challenges a lot, but underneath a challenge is always an opportunity. So I think you've got a combination of both, certainly at your site. From an access perspective, within a mile of 412, great regional corridor. As we talk about hosting regional tournaments, really couldn't pick a better site from that perspective. Within 5 miles of downtown, you're within 3 miles of over a dozen restaurants and hotels. So really, it's a great setup. As we've done these regional sports complexes across the state, you all really have a great spot to build this out compared to what we've seen. A challenge, though, is access. We've heard some feedback that on game day, especially with arriving and departing, all at an influx of traffic can be a real challenge there. We see that as likely a cause of really one primary access point to the site. And while you have a signal at 412 for that access point, everyone's choking down to one area. So we'd love to explore, we've done a little bit already, love to explore further the idea of adding another access point. We see the half section line, you see there in yellow, kind of a faint yellow. It could be a possibility to extend a road. That's all privately owned land. Could be a great start to some expanded commercial development to the west and provide that secondary access that we think your site really needs. The other things we looked at is challenges, but also opportunities. On these sports complexes, especially ones that grow in phases, there's a tendency for loop roads to become barriers to pedestrian cross traffic. So when we looked at that access, new access road, possibly from the north, you want to begin to grid those roads through the complex. But as soon as us civil engineers suggested that, our landscape partner said, please don't do that. We want the complex to be walkable interior. We want folks to be able to safely walk from soccer over to baseball, football, softball. So we'll get creative, and we have done this many times. We've looked at some concepts. We'll share those. Jason and Daniel will share those with you. But maintaining walkability between the complexes, that also provides, you can still achieve shared parking, but perhaps you're parking on the soccer side, walking over to the baseball side. But what you can do is solve both your access problem and your parking problem without creating a pedestrian driver conflict. The last thing, kind of a small idea, but there's been a ton of investment in Enid locally with your trails. Great trail network as a runner and a cyclist. I love to see that. But the trail stops just to the east of this site, so opportunity to extend that trail. Darren observed a lot of people out walking around the complex, so a great opportunity to connect to your cyclists and pedestrians around the city. A challenge for this site, it's going to be a civil engineering nerd a little bit here, but you do have some floodplain, significant floodplain to the north and east of your site, as well as residential property in the floodplain to the southeast. That's significant because this site falls to the southeast, which falls onto the soccer complex and then to residential properties to the south. So you really have to keep an eye on flood control and ensure that you do not create any flooding issues for anyone downstream, especially residential properties. So you've got great bones there with the city regional detention pond. They're shown in orange. The cyan is the floodplain. The green shapes are existing detention ponds that were built with the soccer complex. What we would like to do, and you'll see in the concepts we present here shortly, merge and grow those detention ponds in a way that fits with our access plan. We'll certainly work closely with the engineering department to meet all the requirements, but we want to take care of that stormwater in a way that still maximizes the space for the program of the facility.
We also want to talk about when you're talking development, you're going to need utilities. So how do we get utilities to the site? So we do have a 16-inch water line that has been extended for the soccer complex with an 8-inch water line that loops through the soccer complex. So assuming that there's adequate water pressure, that 8-inch water line could be extended to be utilized for our complex as well. Also, when you're talking municipal sports complexes, if we're going to go the natural turf route or natural grass, We will also be looking for irrigation. So another opportunity that we may have, there is a raw water line that crosses at Garland and Roop that we may be able to utilize, and that's an opportunity that we may be able to look at as well. As far as sewer, there is a 12-inch sewer line that's on the north edge of the property. There's an 8-inch sewer connection that is a gravity connection that feeds to the soccer complex. We feel that since the soccer complex was able to feed to that line, it may be feasible for us to utilize that also for our complex as well. We also did do some site visits out to the complex, and we do have transmission lines out there. You can see the substation that's just on the south end of the property. And there's transmission lines that run along the west side of the property and along the north side. So as we develop the site, we will have to take that into consideration.
So we're going to talk about design and communication of design just for a second. You know, Darren mentioned earlier about how important communication is, and it is vital to this whole process, right? From the very beginning in developing those goals. I love to sit down during that first meeting or first few meetings and develop those goals, and almost publishing them so we can always refer back to that, you know, as a sign of success. Are we doing the right things? Are we succeeding here, right? It's all based on what those goals are that we established at the very beginning. Now, when it comes to communication here, the little image there to the right is a sports complex that's in the village of Bradley in Illinois, one that's also in construction right now. That's a rendering that one of my staff did for that project there. This rendering as well this is a project down in Sarasota County, Florida. This is a park that we did probably 6 years ago. This is all 3D rendered with software. And basically this was a communication tool. We put it together. We were able to come sit down at a city council meeting, present this, kind of do some fly-throughs and basically show exactly what this park was going to look like. And luckily, after it was constructed, we were able to go back and take a similar photo from the same orientation, and this is what we came up with. So this is actual built work, and to go back to the 3D model, you see we can get really close and very accurate. So there's the built work again. So really quickly, we went through and we talked a lot about design. We talked about communication. We did a really good inventory and a lot of study on your existing site. We also did kind of a test fit based on what we saw in the RFP with the field sizes you guys wanted, the number of fields you guys wanted, that type of thing. So this is just a test fit. We started pushing some things around to see how things might fit on your site. We're taking some cues there to tie back into your existing soccer park there to the east with some pedestrian connections across there. What we'd like to do is really pull that in closer and squeeze that. But right now that property line that we see is really close to the outfield, the outfields of those multi-purpose fields right there. So,
which property line are you talking about there?
East is down.
Okay, towards the soccer field then?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that property line is probably 20 foot off of that outfield fence right now.
Okay.
So there's kind of some space in there for the bus loop right in there, and then some stormwater facility kind of in through there. What we'd like to do is really squeeze that over and make those two complexes really talk to one another better, and make those pedestrian connections across there, right? So again, just a test fit. Another piece and part of this, test-wise, is there's about 950 parking stalls on here that we put together. As a rule of thumb, when you design these types of complexes, you want to have a minimum of 50 stalls per field, up to optimums like 100 stalls per field. That basically gets you all of your participants, families, and everybody for the existing game, but it also allows other kids and parents to show up and have that trade-off, in and out. So if you're up near 90 or 100 stalls per field, it's a lot more optimum. So with 950 parking stalls here and 11 fields, be it 10 baseball and the rectangular field down to the south, that's averaging about 85, 86 parking stalls per field. Now the four multi-purpose fields in the center, if you have a baseball tournament, for example, a regional tournament, you'd have 8 fields there, another 4, the complex just to the north, that's a total of 12, plus the 2 all the way to the north, that's 14 fields. With that amount of parking, you're down to 65 cars per field. So roughly about what you want as far as a fit. So again, this is just a fit diagram, not really a design. This isn't really where the magic happens. The magic really, to me, happens between the fields. The fields are spaces, but in between those spaces is where all the magic happens. I used to play baseball a lot when I was a kid, and the biggest thing that I remember is it was hot, it was long days, and I felt really dirty, right, when I was done with the game. So when I came off that field, the first thing I wanted to do was pull off my cleats and take off those stirrup socks that were in and get my feet into some grass, right, and get in the shade a little bit. So that's really what my experience was. Now with my kids playing baseball, I have 12 and 14-year-old boys. My experience is I want to get out of there, backed off away from those fields. Is there an opportunity for me to stay on site, or do I want to go just north to a mixed-use entertainment type of space? What do I want to do as a parent? So to me and to our team, the magic's going to happen is when we get together and talk about what this thing really will be, what's going to make it unique. So Darren mentioned as well, you've got a lot of opportunities to have baseball tournaments and sports tournaments in Oklahoma. Parents spend a lot of money coming to these tournaments. The beginning of the year when they get on these travel squads, the first thing they do is they say, we're gonna go on 5 trips. Where are we going? We've got to figure out the proper way to make this facility unique. When those parents talk that Enid's number 1 on that list, well, it's like, well, we know we're going to Enid and we're going to go to this other one. Well, what are our last 3? So that's the challenge, and it's us working together to understand what that wants to be, right? So it's not just here, it's establishing those goals and communicating back and forth with that to establish that.
All right, well, we'll close this as far as the presentation goes. So hopefully we've shared a lot of good information with you. As I mentioned, listening to Jason speak, heavy hitters in the sports facility design area. He can talk days about turf and material and everything. So loves that area, and we can really bring that experience. For the whole team, we love designing these types of facilities. So designing for the love of the game, it is rewarding to take your kids to a place that you've designed and to see other people enjoying it. So that's where we really find the joy in these. And then we're up for the challenge. We won't be caught looking. This is what we do. We want to partner with you guys on this and make sure it's a successful project. And then we have a winning record. These have been done. We'd love to take you on a tour of seeing some of these regionally across the country. If there's something that looks interesting, you can really see those in action. So with that, we would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Very good presentation, first of all, thank you. And I'm going to do like I did last time, just open it up to each one of the commissioners. I'll start on this end this time, Commissioner Orr. No questions?
We do
Mr. Stahl?
have the, sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, that'd
We
be
have
great.
the presentation too, so I think there's 10, so. And there are only, I think there's 10 of those, so you may be going to run out. It's one short, didn't count right.
Everybody all good? Commissioner Roberts, you have any questions?
So do you guys have a managing organization to where you would manage the property afterwards, or is it you build and then hand us the keys?
You want to talk a little bit about sports facilities and their, yeah.
So Gary mentioned in our entry there that we have a partner, SFA, Sports Facility Advisory. Their parent name is Sports Facilities Companies. So they've got a management arm that does offer that. They're really good at it. They basically started out as an advisory group that did marketing and feasibility studies, helped a lot of communities get funded because they did the financial piece of it as well. And what they found was over time, a lot of those municipalities would come back to them and say, hey, we built this, you helped us build this great facility, but we don't know how to manage it. So they got into the management portion of it. So they manage quite a few of these across the country. They could be a great avenue if that's something you're looking for. Especially, I know this facility will be both for local residents, and you're looking also at bringing some regional tournaments in as well. So there's going to be a mix of that, right? They do a really good job of figuring out how to manage that, right, and how that's going to happen. They can manage to a budget as far as that goes, and try to basically hit the mark when it comes to revenue for the facility. Obviously, the more revenue, the more tournaments they're going to want to bring in. You want it to be more 50-50, they can help lead you down to that path to understand what type of money you can make.
And then also noticed just the one football field. Would the multipurpose fields also, I guess football would be good for like Pee Wee football as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it'd be multiple fields. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Norwood?
My question is, dealing with construction, you have a lot of unforeseens that come about. Usually we know that in construction, we can give a projection on cost and how long it's going to take. Most of the time, it's a little bit more and takes a little bit longer. Not always, but sometimes. With that, what's been you all's experience?
Well, I'll say from the one we worked on in Midwest City, it had a specific time frame, it had a specific budget, it was a bond project, so they had dollars that they couldn't really go over. So on that one, we had to get really tight with what we were designing and what was out to bid. We worked on some alternates. We actually bid the turf out. It was a fully synthetic field. There's a lot of money in turf, so we actually bid the turf out separate from the general contractor. So that helped take some of that overhead down. So getting creative to make sure we're managing that, tying in those alternates to make sure that, hey, we can stay under that cap, as you will, and then also providing a tight set of plans where there's not a lot of unknowns that come about. But typically, there's some contingency attached to it where you're not right up at that cap as soon as you start out. So, but our goal is to work with the contractor, make sure that they understand what they're doing and get ahead of those those change orders. And the other advantage, and Jason can speak to this some too, is doing these across the country and region, you do get a good handle of what things cost, what's the new trends, and where the price is headed. So we have a good baseline of those costs coming in all the time, and it's not a once every 4 year kind of thing. So I don't know if that answer your question. Okay.
Yes, sir, and I have one other question. Because I remember in high school when I played football, turf speeds up the game a lot faster than natural grass does. And we loved it. We loved the turf because the game became more competitive and it was a lot faster. But there was a danger in it, injury. And, we see that a lot. I mean, I know that grass, it costs more due to watering and seeding and all that stuff. What do you all suggest as far as turf versus grass?
Well, I think they both have their place. I personally love natural grass. In a facility like this, in my opinion, if we did some of these multi-purpose fields like this, I would go turf on those. And then on my diagram, how do I get to that? On my diagram.
Go back.
Yeah. The fields to the right or to the north, the next set of 4 there, those are 220-foot fields. Those are softball fields, right? Personally, I would do natural turf there. You're not going to do any rectangular sports in the outfields unless we determine you're going to do some Pee-wee soccer or something like that. But if these fields are just going to be for fast pitch softball fields, I would do natural turf in your outfields. You only have 3 outfielders running around out there. There's no reason to do synthetic turf out there. 1, for cost. 2, you're just not going to wear it out. So that's that's what I look at there. The second thing is on synthetic turf. What made it fast is the SBR rubber, the black rubber you see all the time that, you get the static and it gets all over everywhere. There's a trend going away from that. Basically, there's some organic infills out there. I've got my favorites. One of them is it's a manufactured wood fiber pellet, basically, that takes the place of that SBR rubber. And it basically will pull moisture from the atmosphere and keep the surface a lot more cool. Where SBR rubber is black, it keeps everything a lot hotter, right? So they're looking at temperatures 30, 35 degrees less than SBR rubber. The second piece that happens with that is it is a little bit slower because you're not going to have that bounce in the rubber there. So that does take a little bit of the speed back, right? I'm not saying it's not a slow surface, but it takes you back down to earth. The thing that comes along with that is the reason SBR rubber was popular is because it helped prevent the concussions, right? So when a helmet or a head hit the floor, it was able to absorb that impact. If we go away from that and use this manufactured wood fiber, we've got to figure out another way to make that impact safe. And what they're doing is we're putting shock pads underneath the synthetic turf carpet to take on that shock impact. So it's basically a shock pad. The nice thing about those is we'll install that from fence to fence. So you're going to be safe from fence to fence on concussions. And so as the city looking at that, your liability should come down because you're always going to be guaranteed that you're safe from concussions if you have a shock pad there. If you build fields with SBR rubber where your shock attenuation is the material itself, if you don't maintain that field right, you get areas where the depth of this SBR rubber is too shallow, you're liable. If it's too deep and you twist an ankle, you're liable. So you're constantly got to maintain that to make sure it's nice and even. So there are some newer products out there that are safer. Definitely understand the concern about game is faster and a lot, harder impacts. I would say that synthetic turf products are probably the most researched thing I've ever seen in my life. Just with the amount of kids and athletes that play on it, it's really well studied.
So that could really be a selling factor, selling point for us as far as marketing, as well as the safety and the least liability going forward. Will that cost any more than it would the natural grass, or is it about the same, or do you have any idea?
I got a lot of ideas. So synthetic turf right now, synthetic turf fields are costing about $12 a square foot, roughly across the board. So when you go to the manufactured wood fiber, it's in lieu of the SBR rubber, it's nominal difference, but you have to buy the shock pad, and that's about $1 a square foot more. So there is an investment in that shock pad piece.
Okay.
Now, when you compare it to natural turf is a completely different animal, right? Because we have different levels of natural turf that we can build. We can build natural turf fields that have native soil root zones or native soil growing mediums. And those cost about $5.50 to $6 a square foot, something like that. That includes all your irrigation, all your infrastructure with it. The downfall with those is, if you have a rain event, you might be sitting there for a week waiting for it to dry out, right? The next level up from that style of natural turf construction is a sand cap. And then above that is a sand-based root zone where, I do fields for Major League Baseball, NFL, all the time that are that level. Well, now you're talking about the same price as synthetic turf. You're $12, right? You're in that range. The nice part about them is if you have the capital to do that and maintain them, you can make it work. But it's definitely an investment.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Passion?
Okay, in the initial packet that I received, there was a page on contract exceptions, and one of the things it said is, without additional compensation, correcting and revising errors would be taken care of. Is that correct?
I think that's probably referring to like if there's an error or omission on our part, that's part of we would correct that.
Without additional
You're
compensation?
correct, yeah.
Okay. And then you would provide monthly progress reports?
And we can do it however your billing cycle happens, but most of the time municipalities will want to see a progress report with an invoice. So we will just submit an invoice or a progress report with the invoice, whatever that cycle is. If it's 2 months, if it's every 2 weeks, whatever that ends up being. But yeah, we do progress reports.
Okay. Another question I had was about what have you seen over these years that you've been doing this as far as maintenance on synthetic turf? How often does that have to be fixed or replaced? And the same thing with your shade covers in the Oklahoma wind.
I can speak a little bit. I'll let Jason speak to the turf and maybe even the shade too. But the shade, yes, that it can be a challenge with wind, with hailstorms, with everything. Typically in the wintertime, you can take them down, if they've got the fast disconnect, get them down, and that helps prolong it. But in the long run, there's that replacement cycle. And it really does depend on weather events. If you get lucky and there's not a lot of major windstorms or hailstorms, they can last 10, 15 years. But you get a hailstorm, you may get a couple years out of it. But that we can look at that. We can weigh the pros and cons. Sometimes the more permanent shelters are more beneficial. There's a lot of parks in Oklahoma City that have built those polygon shade elements, and they're 25 years old, and they look the same. So it costs a little more than the fabric, but kind of play the pros and cons. I'll let you talk a little bit about that maintenance. Sure.
So, maintenance on synthetic turf. What you'll find in the majority of the warranties on these synthetic turf companies are, they're going to require you to groom that field every 60 to 75 hours of play. So it's not once a week, it's not once a day, it's going to be by hours of play. The other piece and part that you'll find in the warranty, like the fine print of the warranty, is that you need to document hours of play and the maintenance that you do on each of those fields at each of those intervals, right? So you walk it, you look at seams, you pick up debris, you fix any small tear that might happen or a seam that might be coming apart, and you document all of that. That is critical to the warranty back to the synthetic turf company. Now, some are better than others, right, obviously, but the biggest part is going to be hours of play. I'll bring up real quick here, the more, like on a football field, for instance, you got a lot of white lines, you got hash marks, you got logos, you got all these things. Historically, how these synthetic turf companies build these things is they roll out the green carpet and then they come out there and they actually cut the turf, they cut in these hash marks, they cut in all the logos and all of the different things that's not green, and then they sew it or glue it together. Each one of those, hymns there or whatever, is a potential point of failure that you got to go look at, right? Newer on the market for the last maybe 18 months, there's a synthetic turf manufacturer out there that basically they tuft the fiber into the backing of the carpet in the manufacturing process. So as it rolls out, it's already got all the logos, it's all got every hash mark, every color that you need in it. So you eliminate 80-90% of your potential failure points by using that certain synthetic turf company. Now, they still have to sew it together. It comes in rolls, 15-foot wide rolls. You still got to sew it together there, and that's a potential point of failure. But you've eliminated all the rest of those. It is a little bit more expensive, but it's not greatly expensive. It's not something that's going to blow you out of the water. So.
Okay. Last one, and I'll start off by saying I love the concept of arrive, experience, and leave. Hopefully they leave in love with our fields. But one of the things I noticed in, again, that first packet I got was right at the beginning of your packet, it says you were ranked number 2 for sports by Engineering News Record for 2023. In 2024, you dropped to 14. Any ideas why there was that drop? Was it just more competition in there? Or?
I think it was, most of that is, I think it's ranked by dollars. So in 2023, we had a couple of professional jobs that the numbers were a lot higher in. 2024, we have less. 2025, we've got a couple already. So it's more of the style of job, right? So that's really what it is. It's just revenue dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Got a couple questions I'd like to ask you. I want to go back to the transmission lines on the west side. That's been a concern of mine also. I've thought about that. So is that going to be an issue other than where we have to place a road if we put a road over on that side? I mean, it shouldn't affect play at all, should it?
Speak to that real briefly. There's an easement along that line per the documents that are available, the city GIS system. So we would keep as much playing surface or all playing surface out of that easement, but could still have other amenities, parking, things like that, perhaps within that easement. Have to clear the poles, maintain that. And then we've looked at that with the road. We could potentially have the road set on the half section and then have the poles running between perhaps the road and the parking. I don't know if I answered your question or not. Or if you have anything else to add.
Well, I think, just wanted to bring up, that's why we pushed the fields to the east, and kept the parking up, near the transmission lines. We're going to have to, for the parking lot lighting, it'll have to be to the east as well to honor that easement as well. That's the other kind of piece and part why I mentioned that if we can squeeze closer to that existing soccer complex, it's going to help us, right? They'll help one another as far as pedestrian traffic goes in between them, but it'll create more distance from those transmission lines.
Okay, two-part question. On the lights then, the parking lot lights, they would have to be on the east side of the parking lot shining back the other way. So we wouldn't be right up next to that transmission line. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
Okay. And then the other piece that I'm worried about is future expansion. In the event that we ever needed to expand to the west, can we have that transmission line going across that ballpark and we go from one side to the other with other fields that might be on that side? Are you following what I'm saying?
100%, 100%. I think if that is in the future, then what I would like to do is expand our study envelope to include that, just with some sketches and to understand how we want to handle the vehicular traffic. Because right now we're cutting off pedestrians from walking back and forth with all of our parking and traffic there. So if we're looking at a bigger envelope like that, the last thing I want to do is have kids walking through those parking islands.
Right.
And where people are trying to leave, somebody's upset they lost a game or whatever, and they don't see a kid and we have a problem. So you want to keep all that pedestrian traffic inbound and all the traffic flow outbound, right?
Okay.
As far as crossing under, that should,
Okay.
with traffic, pedestrian,
Okay.
that's typically fine. It would be within the easement language.
Also, something you said a while ago, or somebody did, where we turn 4 fields into 8, where we have backstops on both sides. Would there still be a fence in between? I know that would be for the smaller kids, but we have another field here in town where they do that, and the ball's always crossing over on both sides. And for those kids that, first of all, don't even know where first base is, trying to figure out which ball is theirs. I just think that's something.
Yeah.
Would there still be a fence in between those two, or could be, or how does that work?
So right now, you see the main field with the tan color up there is the infield. That's the full-size field, right? So if you break this down, the field on the left, you break it down to 2 fields instead of 1, you can put a temporary outfield fence that splits the 2 corners, right? There's a kind of a faint line that shows an infield at the right field corner and one at the left field corner. So you're no longer using the main infield there. Does that make sense? So you can do temporary fencing to separate the 2 outfields.
Okay.
Now, what I'll say is a lot of times we'll put provisions in there. They'll buy the temporary fencing, and tournaments they'll use it, but league play at night they don't bother bringing it out, putting it up, and taking it down. There's a lot of labor involved in that. So what we find a lot of times when you're playing like 10U, they don't hit the ball that far anyway, so they don't bother putting it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the turf again. And I appreciate your explanation. I'll be honest, I didn't know how that stuff comes in 15-foot rolls. I'll learn something new. But I worry a lot about the heat we have in Oklahoma. And two questions. One, and I know it depends on what sport you're playing and how many games and how many hours. I get all that.
Yep.
But as a governing body, we also have to sit here and go, well, I'm 8 years out from probably having to replace the turf. What is a life expectancy of a field and a ballpark? I don't know if that's 3 years, 10 years, or 30 years. Please say 30 years.
I can probably tell you 30 years would be too long, right?
Okay.
When you get up there around 10 years, even with the hours of play, if you don't have a ton of hours of play on it, you've got a lot of that sun and solar gain on it, on that fiber.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to break it down. So I would look at 10 years replacement. Your typical warranty, you're right, is 8 years. There is probably the toughest, most durable carpet on the market right now is a woven carpet. It doesn't have a backing, so the fiber itself is basically woven into a backing. It's called iron turf. It lasts probably the longest of anything that I've experienced so far. It does come with a premium, probably 20, 25 cents more per square foot than your typical carpet. But I would say 10 years you should be looking at replacing.
On the heat on that, and I know you talked a while ago about the pellets and how that can, but what else could we consider doing to keep that surface? I've been at ball games where umpires have just fallen right over, passed out, and ball players, and it really gets hot down there. I've seen it get 140 plus degrees down on that field.
Yeah.
What are they doing now? That just can't be the norm if they're starting to do more turf in Oklahoma and Texas and farther south.
So I go back to these organic products. Like that manufactured wood product will pull that moisture from the air because it's humid down here. If we were in Arizona, I would say that you would need to somewhat sprinkle your synthetic turf. It sounds contradictory, right? It can kind of dumb, but it needs that moisture to lower the temperature. Being in a humid area, I don't think you would need to do that, but if I'm sure that I could call Brock. Brock is the manufacturer of this new infill. I'm sure they've got some installs in Oklahoma. I know they have some in Texas, quite a few in Texas. I don't want to give you a number, but I think they're getting a great number in Texas just because of the heat of the SBR rubber. Because it's the rubber that raises the heat, not so much the synthetic turf fiber itself, the green, right?
Okay.
So when they're going, you've got a lot of municipalities going to this manufactured wood. They're having a lot of success with it. Okay. We can share some studies with you and comparisons.
Okay, and I'm sure if your firm's selected, we're going to look at that pretty close because I do worry about the heat a lot. But just two more quick questions, and then if anybody else has a follow-up, I'll let them do it. But and I don't think I missed it, but in your presentation, did y'all say that you would help us determine the number of fields that we need for our market that we have, or no?
We could do that, yes. That's where our consultant, our sub-consultant SFA comes in.
Okay.
So I think in the RFP it said you're looking at having regional tournaments of 130 teams. So SFA is great with determining you're going to need this many fields with this many teams, right? I can give you a rough number and what I think it is. They really dive into the details and can tell you exactly why you need that many and how you manage your tournament with that, right? Because the more fields you have, the more teams you have, the more time it takes to run that tournament, right? So they'll help tune that in.
And then my last concern is making sure if your firm's selected and we get completely down to the process and we're under construction, Will our local contractors be able to bid on this, all the sub pieces, the electrical, the water extensions, I mean, all that kind of stuff? You don't have a requirement that someone you've used before must do that, or?
No, typically it's just general, make sure you've done it before in some fashion.
Right.
So we can work with that. I know some cities have classifications of contractor class. I mean, Oklahoma City has like Class A, Class B. So depending on the type of work that's being done, it doesn't have to be the top tier. You know, a lot of that's determined by a project size. So we can work with the city to make sure that we're not putting something there that would exclude. And really, we encourage that. We're working in Alva on a pool project, and that was one of their big things is, hey, can we use local contractors? So we want to make sure that's.
Yeah, we're fortunate in Enid. We have some big contractors that operate all over the state and outside the state. So we just want to make sure
yes,
it's their tax dollars that we're spending on this project. So.
Yep.
I think that's all the questions I have. Are there any follow-up questions anybody wants to ask? Thank you very much.
Yes. No, thank you guys. We appreciate the time and effort. I know it's a lot of effort on a lot of parts, so we do appreciate the consideration and time. So.
Yeah. You're not going back to Kansas City tonight, I'm assuming. No. Well, we appreciate that hotel motel tax, so thank you. All right. Thank you all. All right, that was good. A lot of information. All right, item number 5.1. Hold a hearing regarding proposed changes to the boundaries of the Ward 1 and Ward 2 to reflect changes in population in these two wards as indicated by data from the 2020 census. So this is a hearing. I don't have anybody that signed up to speak either for or against that. I'll open that up if you do want to speak. Anybody?
Cheryl, thank you.
You're
Appreciate that. For increasing my ward size. That's awesome.
I will miss my former constituents,
I'll take care of
but
it.
I know you'll take good care of them.
All right, if there's no comments on that, I'm going to move on to 6.1. This will be an action item that we will actually vote on. So consider an ordinance amending the Enid Municipal Code 2024 Title I Administration, Chapter 6, Wards and Elections, Section 1-6-1, Wards established, providing changes to Ward 1's boundary and Ward 2's boundary to reflect the changes in population in these two wards, as indicated by data from the 2020 census, providing for repealer, saving clause, severability, and codification.
I move that we approve the change in Ward 1 and Ward 2 boundaries.
I second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. Item 6.2, consider approval of an agreement with the City of Garber to transfer a portion of a waterline easement and related equipment to the City of Enid. Turn that over to you, Gerald, if you want.
Yeah, I'll speak briefly and try to answer questions with the help of our wonderful staff. Breckenridge and Garber came to us probably 6 months ago, maybe longer. Breckenridge has some issues. They're a tiny town. They don't have any money. They've got an old water tower and they need a better water supply. Garber had had paid to connect to our water line and extend it all the way to Garber several years ago. So we do sell water to Garber. So what they came to us, both Garber and Breckenridge, looking for a solution where the City of Enid could potentially help them. And what that help turns out to be is we have a water line that on Willow that goes out to approximately halfway between 54th and 66th Street, it looks like. In fact, I think we have a map under 6.2. Could you pull up the map? Yeah, and I don't know if you can turn that clockwise one turn. That might be help orient us. Willow is the street there that is in the middle, I believe. That dashed, it's a dashed line. You can see where he's running the cursor is east-west. Can you show them where 66th Street is to the left of your cursor right there? You can see that water line. Morley, can you show them on the, thank you. Morley, you just want to talk them through it? You're the expert.
Yeah. Currently, city water main stops are right here. It's a Pioneer School on Willow between 54th and 66th. So from there, Garber's line, it's a 6-inch PVC line that goes from here all the way to Garber, goes into Garber. So currently, when Breckenridge came to the city to get water, so they're proposing water line on 102nd Street. Here is 102nd Street. So, like getting transferring the water line from Pioneer School to 102nd Street. So if the city is going to take care of that water line, so we can provide water to both Garber and Breckenridge. So that's the essence.
Yeah, so Garber, this is really a two-part thing. Garber has separately, there's a transfer document as part of this first item where they've already approved and signed off giving us the portion of the line from approximately 66th Street to 102nd Street. We would end up moving the water meter from that same location out to about 102nd Street, and we would do that at our expense and in accepting that line, but there's no other expense. In other words, they're not charging us for the line. It's a benefit to Garber, to Breckenridge, and us. So there's minimal expense to the city to accept it, move the water meter, then Garber can still be served. And then the idea is that Breckenridge is separately working with DEQ and some engineers, Jason Brinley in particular, to get grants to run a water line from their town and or water tower down to 102nd Street and connect. And what we would end up doing is putting a water meter, they would pay to put a water meter in there, and we would pick up an additional political subdivision customer. They have about 75 customers or homes, people that live in Breckenridge. All we would do is with that meter is we would bill them at the subdivision rate that's established in the ordinance currently, and then they would handle the billing to their individual customers, or 75 or how many customers they have. It isn't a ton of revenue. Scott, I think you figured it's...
You know, it would create about $25,000 a year in annual revenue. But you know, as partners in our community in doing this Call Lake project, you know, this is one of the things that we wanted to do is to be a regional hub and help other communities, you know, get some water. And so I think we're accomplishing the mission there.
Yes, and I think it's unique. Well, I don't know if it's unique or not, but the three communities have come together. I know when they came to us, at some point, Mayor, you were involved with the mayor of Breckenridge and the mayor of Garber, and we sat down and had some meetings with Morley and staff and talked about it. We think this is the best solution. It's in place, so it's before you tonight. Garber has approved already on the document, which if you scroll up, you'll see their document. It's a simple transfer agreement that legal has looked at and thinks is sufficient. And then the next item, when we get to that, is the water contract with Breckenridge, which is all we need, which is a standard. We have standard water contracts with all of our political subdivisions that we serve. And this would just be an additional one that we would serve. So we think it's a great deal. In fact, I think Breckenridge, Mayor Powell had told me, I think they're voting today.
Tonight, yeah.
My guess is they've already gotten done with their meeting and gone home and probably approved this, but it's up for you guys to consider and hopefully approve tonight. What questions do you have about it that we could answer or that Morley could answer?
I just have a comment. I see them, sorry, Rob. I see them as an extension to our community. They work here, they shop here, they pay taxes. So if it works out for all of us, I don't understand why we wouldn't do it.
Move approval.
Second it.
Got a motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. The companion piece, the 6.3, consider approval of a water purchase contract between the City of Enid, the Enid Municipal Authority, and the Town of Breckenridge. The Breckenridge Municipal Authority through June 30th of 2035. This is just the contract, like we do with every other community that we provide water to.
And that contract reads, it goes out 10 years, and then after that, we would consider annual renewals or another longer-term renewal. But that gets it out there a while. That's similar to what we've done with Garber.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. Okay. Item number 4. I want to read this and I'm going to open it up to discussion. Discuss and consider the half and Kinley Horn presentations for the new youth sports complex and select the preferred firm. Authorize staff to negotiate the scope of the work and the corresponding fees and prepare a contract for approval by the mayor and board of commissioners. So, as we went through that, and as we have considered that, there is a lot of information there, a lot of information, more than I even had, and I had studied it quite a bit. I would be willing to entertain pushing this off to our next meeting on January the 23rd. I think that will give us more time to consider it. I think it deserves a lot of consideration, both of those firms, and to also talk to our own engineering team and kind of get their thoughts on this. So I'm going to leave it up to the commission. If you want to move forward on it tonight, we can, or if somebody wants to table it, I'm fine with that also.
I would move to look at maybe this in the next meeting, because again, I would like to talk to the engineers and just give people who are seeing this at home an opportunity to call us with any concerns they might have. So I would like to make a motion to table this until the next meeting.
Okay. I have a motion.
I'll second that.
And a second. Please cast your ballots. All right, motion passes 6-0. I think that's a good thought. Item number 7, the consent.
Move to approve consent items.
Motion?
Scott seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Motion and a second. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. Item number 8, recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. All trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority are present with the exception of Commissioner Baker. Item 10.1, consider a resolution increasing the 2024-2025 physical financial plan for the Enid Municipal Authority in the amount of $3,594,450.
Move to approve.
Second it.
Motion and a second. Cast your ballot. Motion passes 6-0. Item 10.2, consider approval of an agreement with the City of Garber to transfer a portion of the water line easement and related equipment to the City of Enid, the Enid Municipal Authority.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. Item 10.3, consider approval of a water purchase contract between the City of Enid, the Enid Municipal Authority, and the Town of Breckenridge, the Breckenridge Municipal Authority through June 30th, 2035.
Move to approve.
Second it.
Motion and a second. Cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. Item 10.4, approval of claims in the amount of $352,855.56.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. Item number 11, adjourn to convene as the Enid Economic Development Authority. All trustees are present of the Enid Economic Development Authority with the exception of Commissioner Baker. Item number 13.1, approval of claims in the amount of $15,752.15.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. Item number 14, adjourn to convene as the Enid Municipal Transportation Authority. All trustees are present of the Enid Public Transportation Authority with the exception of Commissioner Baker. Item number 16.1, approval of claims in the amount of $5,586.73.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Cast your ballots. Motion passes 6-0. Item number 18, public comment. I have one person on the list to speak. Ms. Graves, Ray Graves.
She's not here.
All right. With that being said, item number 19, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I've got a second somewhere, I'm sure, don't I?
Second.
Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
He's a local.
Good meeting.